Keep my eye on the network channel.
Hello, this is Chris Jantzen. Welcome to the End Evil podcast.
It was a crazy year, 2020. I think everybody kind of was losing their mind one way or another. But if you're listening to this, you made it through.
Stupid, and
And
they're making mistakes, and people are starting to awake based
There is a science of human freedom.
Basically, it's also a spiritual journey.
a person under hypnosis will start to see that there's something wrong. Something is wrong. And
It's great that you know what you've come to know, but until there's an outlet for that information and you start creating and putting your creations out into the world to teach other people so that they can become as knowledgeable as you.
Life. What is encouraging life is good. That which takes away from life and growth and creativity is not good. That's Hello, hello. Welcome to the End Evil podcast. This is Chris Jantzen. Evil is the destruction of freedom. This podcast is dedicated to the book, The End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke, and the work of Mark Passio on whatonearthishappening.com. And today I'm here streaming live with my friend and co-producer, Will Keller. We got today, Aaron's helping us out, connecting us to the One Great Work Network.com, where you can check us out. We're streaming live on Twitch, and I think we're on YouTube. What's up, Will? Thanks for coming, my brother.
What's up, brother? Thanks, man. Thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been
Huge fan of your podcast, man. You're consistent every week, just dropping knowledge, man. I love it.
try to do something. You're always there, kind of backing me up and giving me a slap on the back, and that helps a lot, man. I really appreciate that. Keeps me going.
For sure, man. That's awesome. Good deal.
Yeah, and because you've been such an inspiration to me and kind of like an upbeat, pick me up part of my life. I was thinking this week it'd be fun to work on the more positive aspects of what we do with the End Evil Project and with what you do too as well, and look at what we have to offer and what we have as hope for people that are seeing these problems in the world that we discuss. And I think that hope is really a renaissance. And so I came up with the title for this episode, The Renaissance of Reason. And I'm curious to see just, when you saw those words, what did that put in your head? What did that make you think about, Will?
I love it. That's a great title because for a couple things, we do need a renaissance, a revival, a rebirth of ourselves, right? This is about remembering and getting to know ourselves. People have to keep in mind that the great work it's ancient, first of all. And first and foremost, it's internal. It expresses and we align with natural law, the laws of nature. The foundation, the format, the territory is consciousness, our mind, our body, and our soul. We have to do that inner work, and then we express it outwards, externally, and that expression is art. That's what it is. And there's unlimited forms. People think that, doing the one great work is about, video podcasts. And that is for us, it is, right? We like communicating this via video and audio and stuff. But for someone else, it could be painting, it could be dancing, singing, writing, anything, working with children, talking about health, gardening. There's unlimited possibilities of what the expression could be. It's because it's our ultimate potential. It's our soul path. That's what the great work is. But first, it comes internally, and we have to align with natural law, with nature, and then from there we can output and express it.
I had the pretty special opportunity a couple years ago to go on a trip to Europe, and I went to London and France. And at that time, I happened to be reading this book called The Great Cross of Hendaye, or Hendaye. I don't exactly know how you pronounce it, but I heard about that book through What on Earth is Happening. Mark Passio brought it up in one of his shows, and then because I was going on this long trip where I was going to be traveling to, on the plane for many hours, I thought, oh, it'd be nice to have a big, thick book that gets my brain going. And so I ordered that book. Didn't really know what it was about. Turns out it's all about the whole history of alchemy. And it was really interesting, and it talked a lot about the cathedrals that were built through certain periods of time in history and the amazing growth, what we call the Renaissance, during the period of the Renaissance from the Middle Ages forward. We had this amazing growth where people were building in a way that people had never built before, or if they had, there was no evidence of anything quite like it. And part of what was so amazing about these cathedrals and these buildings was the way they let light in. It was embracing light and bringing it in to where you just stand in this huge rooms. And I got the opportunity to stand in some of these like castles and churches, and you look, there's nothing I've seen on this side of the world that's anything close to some of these structures and amazing things that were built during that period of time. And so what happened? What brought about this amazing period of time in history where people were doing things that, previously hadn't been done, maybe forever, or, since humans could remember, that, there was this sort of flowering, this growth. And I'm kind of seeing some hints, even within all the things that I see as terrible going on in our world, and there's a degradation going on in society. On the other hand, there's this hint now of this rebirth, this flowering that I'm pretty excited about. And one of the reasons I brought this up is because you and I, Will, and our friends are working on the Funnel Conference, and I want to talk about that a little bit later. But I'm wearing my seed shirt today, and that was our friend Brandon Martin, and he put together with his family, Brandon and Douglas and Nate, all those guys worked together, and they came together and put this conference out. That was pretty awesome and fantastic. And I remember the Free Your Mind conferences that used to occur. But I'm seeing this whole kind of revival now of these things happening more. There was the work of Derek Burrows. Recently, I've been watching these COVID revealed things that are coming out. There's people that are getting together that are even a little bit more mainstream and they're, sharing their skills and sharing their strengths. So, I think a good thing to talk about here is what are the tactics and strategies for those of us who are kind of separating from the mainstream into a rebirth of our new lifestyle. What's that going to look like? You got any ideas on that, Will?
Well, since this title is the Renaissance of Reason, that's what we need to use is reason, that rational thought process of the higher order thinking. And, we're seeing this split and this divide in society. And a part of it is accepting it and almost embracing it, because there's a lot of positives that are going on, even in this, this shitty period, with the whole DVOC 19. You and I connected in the beginning of all this, right? We formed our autonomous group. So there's like-minded individuals that are coming together. It's a very apparent where people at and their state of mind, what level of consciousness they are. You're either working and towards freedom, or you're promoting and supporting slavery. And that's becoming more apparent. And, we can kind of band together and collaborate with like-minded individuals. We need that. This is, unity and cooperation. This is what we want to see in the world. And I'm all for, people coming together and starting websites, podcasts, band together with someone that you connect with and express yourself that way. But yeah, it's phenomenal to see these events that are going on. And I think people need to keep in mind that right now it's extremely important to do that internal work. I already mentioned that already, but we have to be balanced. And this is another reason why I love our autonomous group that we do weekly, is because it's a support system as well, where we can talk about what we're going through and ground ourselves in balance. So connecting with people, with humans and the earth, it's extremely important. So that's something people need to keep in mind and strive for.
I'm glad you brought up connection with the earth too. That's one reason I really love the tree of life symbol that I'm used here, and it's real important to me to spend time in nature, to be thankful. And I tend to find other people more like minds. They also like nature. And I think something you brought up in the very beginning is something I like to call creative energy. It's like source energy. When you connect with that energy, amazing things can happen, synchronicities can happen. You can meet people that you wouldn't meet otherwise. But it does take a certain amount of initiative on our part to put ourselves in that flow where those things can happen. And that's kind of why I brought up the trip I was talking about. When I was reading that book, The Great Cross of Hendai, and all of a sudden I'm in southern France, and I realized that right on the part of the book I'm in, when I'm starting to get to that part of the book, all of a sudden I'm finding pages about stuff in southern France, and I'm in southern France, and I got a free day. So I start going to some of the places that are in the black and white pictures in my book, and it just kind of all worked out in this weird, awesome way. And that synchronicity thing I've experienced ever since I began doing this End Evil podcast in little ways. Every time I get a little frustrated or disappointed with my progress, putting out podcasts or becoming a podcaster, I'll talk to someone or someone will reach out to me and say, "Oh, thank you for making the show," or some little pat on the back will happen, and then I've also managed to make new friends. Like I said, I met you from creating my videos, and where I live now is just my whole life has changed. I've gone through quite a change. And on that note, I did look up the word Renaissance. In terms of the etymology, it says in here that an earlier term for it was revival of learning, and I thought that was kind of cool. But it basically means a rebirth, to grow anew, to be reborn. And I think things have changed so drastically in the last couple years that we're sort of forced to relearn ourselves. A lot of people are relearning their career or learning a new career. A lot of people are starting a new relationship, ending another one. And it's causing us to sort of rise to this occasion and push ourselves in new ways. And I think, I totally agree with you. Like, I'm starting to go more on the End Evil podcast in a holistic approach towards becoming a better person all around, because ultimately that's the only solution. And from my point of view, that also means doing more filtering. And that's something I've been recommending. I'd like to hear your point of view on it. I personally really try to keep a lot of media out of my head these days. I'm not following what all everybody's saying anymore. Sometimes I do watch, like I said, we were watching the COVID revealed. I'll watch certain things, but I'm kind of careful what inputs I let come into my psyche these days, because I think we really, those of us who want to be part of this rebirth, we really need to start focusing more on the solutions and what we can do in our own realm of sphere of influence.
Yeah, man, that's a great point. And I agree with you. I'm very reserved and cautious what I let come into my psyche. That doesn't mean that I'm ignorant to what is going on. I just know the tactics and the strategies that mainstream media, any type of media, people need to understand polarization and how this operates. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's alternative or what. You have to break it down to its core root message. And the mind, it's really easy to get fixated on a certain topic and stay polarized within that topic. So having the foundation of principles. I filter everything through its base. If it's moral, if it aligns in nature, if it's natural, and I only hold, you know, symptomatic pieces of information for just a short period of time. But you know, it's part of the mental diet as well. You know, cutting off the TV. I don't, you know, I don't watch TV. I might catch a flick here and there, you know, on my own terms. But everything is about energy. So, you know, that's why I'm not into sports, going to movie theaters, that kind of stuff. These are all funneling your energy, your loosh, your life force energy. And it's all about controlling your perception that this is what the news does, right? Wants you to makes you feel like this is the new thing. In reality, it's mind control. It's what it is. So really important to break your habits down on a daily basis. This is what it means to be spiritual. And, you know, the ritual in spiritual is about what you do on a daily basis. It's all about the now. And write it out. And you know, if you're coming home and you're on the Black Mirror phone for 4 or 5 hours straight, you know, that's not healthy. So there's multiple levels of this, and you have to bring it into your conscious mind to be aware of it, and then break it down from there. So I think it's really important that people think about that. Think about who's around them, who they communicate with, you know, partners. I think that's why we're seeing relationships kind of take a split as well. A lot of people are breaking up in this time, yet a lot of people are getting together on the right terms, like-minded individuals, same frequency and stuff, and that's good to uplift each other. But when you're in a relationship and it's polarized, that becomes unhealthy. So health's a big topic. I love how you're taking the holistic approach. That's really important.
Yeah, like it's mental, you know, it's physical and it's spiritual. And so often in our society, the whole spiritual end gets categorized as woo woo or out there, you know, and that's kind of like the main drive of the End Evil podcast. And, you know, all the stuff I work on is to try to encourage people to realize that the divine connection, the source energy, is the reality. Okay, everything else is built off of that. So if we kind of get in touch with that, then other things start making more sense. And I don't know. I've had this experience to where I am a humble person. I don't go around trying to act like I know everything. But since I've really felt solidified about using the term natural law and understanding what that means, I feel like a clarity on decision making and um, what I should do or what I shouldn't do in a lot of areas earlier in life that I would have been confused about. So I think what we're doing is relearning the basics of how to walk, you know, but instead of walking in the physical world, I'm talking about the walk of life, the walk of reality. There's always this underlying question in reality, like, what is this? Why are we here? Why are we experiencing that? You know, and there's so many questions and confusions that the modern world is just inundated with the confusion and just give up. Like, you know, that's kind of like I think where a lot of people are at with it. There's just too much. There's too much information. There's too much to think about. Philosophy is just a bunch of ideas, and none of it ever leads anywhere. But I think we can find a very rooted, very grounded, based in nature, like you said, answers to questions, and that's partly what we talked about is having good community, the people we talk to, and where we let our brain go, and then using things like meditation, breathing practices, exercise, you can tune in to the natural frequency that already exists, the radio of the earth, you know, and things make more sense. They just are easier to solve. And I don't know, I've experienced, like I said, synchronicities, like I talked about on that trip, you know, where things just sort of fell into place, and so many times in life. And but it's also about taking those little leaps of faith and those little steps of doing something that's difficult to do, kind of stepping out of our comfort zone, you know.
Yeah.
So well, yeah.
compassion, right? We need compassion, willpower, and courage, because dark days ahead, and we're going to need those three to push forward. You're right. It is a rebirth. We are returning to that which is. We are nature, right? But a lot of people are slowly pulling from that on a mental level and a physical level with all the shit that they put in their bodies, right? So it's the natural world is constantly communicating with us, and if we can tune our radio into the signal for, like you said, clarity, then we start to recognize more patterns, which is a higher awareness. So yeah.
Like being reasonable used to mean a thing that it can't really mean right now because we're part of the new normal. Because like what we would call common sense in the past, it doesn't apply anymore because some people are just straight up, from my point of view, saying the sky is orange now, accept it or be excommunicated from our reality. And you're like, well, I don't care who you are or what you're saying, the sky's not orange. It never was and it never will be. And here's my examples of that. Well, a perfect example, something I don't harp on a lot, is 6-foot distancing or 3-foot distancing or 12-foot distancing. It's all absolutely ridiculous. No one was ever able to do it. No one ever will be able to do it. It's impossible. It never happened. Not in one store, not in one town. Maybe out in Alaska, people get 6-foot distance most of the time. But for the rest of people, it's just not a practical or realistic thing. And yet, we had the pretense of that's what we were doing, Another perfect example was masks. That drove me crazy. There's so much evidence that cloth masks are useless, maybe even detrimental, probably detrimental for a lot of reasons. And yet, people will swear up and down and force you to do it, even though it's asinine. And then you can be in a restaurant standing right next to someone who's wearing or not wearing. So many situations I could bring up where these situations are absolutely ridiculous. There's no common sense to it. One of the craziest ones I saw was the beaches of Sonoma County were closed for a period of time due to COVID. And when they opened, we went on the website and we looked at, what were the precautions. They were saying you're allowed to come to the beach. Okay, you're allowed to play volleyball. You're allowed to fish, but no sunbathing. No sunbathing. Like, why? What the hell? Isn't sunbathing one of the most healthy things that you could do? Obviously, this wasn't about health. It's just like we could go on and on pointing out things that are unreasonable, that where common sense has kind of gone out the window. So how do we revive common sense or being reasonable? That's a tricky thing. Got any ideas?
Yeah. Well, suffering is the ultimate teacher, and I do think that a lot of people are going to suffer and die in this way as well, suffering and come back here again and do it again and do it again. Ultimately, we're here to inspire. We can't force anyone to do this, right? We can't do it for them. We can't do the work for them, but we can try to influence and inspire them to take that second look, to have that respect. We're being violated on a daily basis, and people don't understand, they don't remember, and they don't know who they are and what they are. They don't know that they are a sovereign being. They're choosing slavery. They're making that free will choice. But people like us that understand how the natural world works, we know that our birthright is sovereignty, and we do not accept domination, and we are not slaves. And that voice needs to get louder and more aggressive. But that's the problem. Like, the people, they're going to have to suffer, a lot of people, before they finally get it. They're being used and abused. They're kept into the R complex of just survival, right? This is not truly living. You are in the reptile mind. You're not actually utilizing the human parts of the body and the brain. So it's like they're not picking up these patterns, and unfortunately, they're harming other people by doing that, by supporting and condoning these violations of freedom and sovereignty. Um, so that's why I'm all for communities. Start building communities, and like I said, there's a part of accepting this divide in society, but also not rolling over. I am 100% not for pacifism. The self-defense principle is live and well and needs to be activated right now for sure. And this is where the courage comes into play, and the willpower, that will to drive forward, the will to stand up. It's like, Chris, we talk about it. How many times you walk into a store, you're the only one wearing a mask. I talk to people and they're like, yeah, I know I should do that. Like, but I just feel weird. I just feel awkward. I don't want any attention on me. That is a lack of willpower, right? It's has nothing to do with arrogance or nothing. That's respect and self-love. And by one doing that, you are influencing and possibly inspiring for the next person to say, yeah, that's right. Fuck that. I'm taking the mask off. I'm not a slave, but they have to make that connection. That's why this is what we do ultimately by talking about freedom, natural right, sovereignty, natural law. We're here to inspire. We don't need leaders. That's, I have a presentation coming up that talks about freedom, and a huge chunk of it is we need to get out of this concept of leaders. Even in the freedom and truth movement, we don't need leaders. What we need is inspiration. That's what we need. As soon as you commit to a leader, then you stop using logic and reason, and you're just following at that point, because that's what a leader does. It leads people. So we need.
It's cool that both the word inspiration and initiative both start with in. The journey begins with in, right?
Yeah.
And so that's we need to take the initiative, and that's difficult to do because we've all grown up in this society where we're so we're so trained and conditioned to always kind of look to the expert, to look to the person that knows, and I'm nobody, I'm just this one little guy. I don't have very much information. I'm not an expert. I don't know what the doctors know. People look at doctors like they're some kind of gods, and you get to know a doctor and they have some expertise that you don't have, but they also don't have expertise that others of us have. And the amazing thing about this community building thing, and I'm already seeing some of this going on in my local community, as with on my online community, people are beginning to learn to say, okay, what kind of skills do we have here in this group? Let's list our skills. What kind of things do you do? Oh, I'm really good at, doing carpentry work. And he's like, oh, I put in blinds. Oh, okay. Let's do a trade. You put in my door and I'll put in your blinds. And so when we start having these type of community interactions, we get this kind of weaving effect, and we can start filling in the spaces where there's not going to be services for some of us in the future. If we don't go along with the program, if we don't want to take a vaccine, or we don't want to carry around a passport, or have our heads scanned with the barcode, or shot with a laser, or whatever the next thing it is, some of us are going to say no. We're going to employ the self-defense principle, but we're going to get destroyed if we're all alone trying to do that by ourselves. But if we're together in groups and there's a lot of us, then then they don't stand a chance. Anyone trying to come in and coerce us into doing something that we'd rather not do. And really, that's a really simple, fundamental thing about freedom, is that you don't even have to agree with what I'm saying. All you have to do is agree with the principle of freedom, the principle that freedom is important. The very principle that we're supposed to be protecting one another's sovereign right to live somewhere and choose how they want to conduct their business and take care of their own body, as long as they're not hurting others. So that should be really simple and basic. But you brought up something else I want to get into, and that is something I've been doing some thinking about. And you were pointing out how people are kind of behaving at a certain level. We're used to living at a survival, our complex brain level, which is kind of like being at the level of an animal in some ways. And it's interesting because I've had this conversation with people trying to figure out what really is the difference between animals and humans. And many people I've had a discussion with will say that there is no difference. We're just animals. And I know from my experience and study and knowledge that nope, there's something that I can do that animals can't do. And it has, sometimes I have a little bit of hard time. I'm trying to put that together in my presentation, actually. They're working for the funnel conference, but curious your thoughts on this. What makes us different from animals? And what is really the difference?
Man, yeah, this could be a whole presentation on this topic. Phenomenal topic, but let's talk about, and this is a huge theme in occultism, right? This is kind of how I got into this information, was studying the occult the occult knowledge. There's levels of consciousness, right? And first, I'm an animist, and the animism, right, is the knowing that consciousness is supreme, is the all, everything has life, and consciousness is the source, right? The all is mind. So looking at things at the level of consciousness, we can break down the categories where you have the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, and the human kingdom. Just looking at humans and animals, we can just look at basic brain function, right? Where humans have the frontal lobe that is responsible for higher order thinking. This is logic and reason, right? This is why your cat, your dog, can't do complex critical thinking or problem solving, right? And mammals have the mammalian brain, and also in our complex, the brain stem as well. So, but animals have they have almost the whole range of emotions, right? These very sentient and amazing beings that can feel on a deep level, but they cannot. They're not at the level of consciousness due to their physiology. They don't have that higher order thinking of logic and reason. And we might have to talk about the body for a minute, right? So, and really mainly the brain, because the brain is like the receiver, even though the whole body works in tandem for our human experience. If we look as consciousness as source, this is the signal. The body, mainly the brain, as a radio. You used this analogy earlier, right? And we can tune in to the frequency. So if animals don't have the certain component, they have a more basic radio, right? They're 1950s 40s radio, right? And now we're here in the 21st century with a different type of radio where we can tune into a stronger, more clear frequency. So that's my point. Might be a crude analogy, but that higher order thinking allows us for our consciousness to be more vast and stronger as well. So we can operate on a different level. But there's tons of other things we can get into. But this is why, when we talk about natural law and people want to combine animals and humans, right? Well, the lion took down the gazelle in the African safari. Is karma gonna reach that lion? It's like, no, we're talking about levels of consciousness, completely different. And this is why the occultism is super important, to dive into this and get down to the nitty details. So there it's a whole different realm of consciousness and reality.
And it takes a certain amount of discipline to want to interpret reality, and I think that's kind of where a lot of folks are stuck, because a modern culture will have you believe that reality is really this very materialistic, kind of simplified version of what those of us that have gone deeper have realized, that it goes on forever. It's infinite. there's really no limit to what your mind and your spirit can experience and learn. And what's kind of sad is it's occurred to me that, in this time we're living in, I brought this up with John last week when we were discussing the apocalypse. We live in a time when there's more information and books and documentaries than have ever existed in all of history. It's all culminated to this point now where you have this wild, extreme library of human experience that goes back for quite a long ways. I mean, who knows what the Library of Alexandria had in it that got destroyed, right? But
Yeah.
we have an amazing culmination right now of information that can be discovered and looked through and read and talked about and digested and discussed and argued over. Yet it's like our modern society or culture seems to be doing the opposite, where they're trying to weed out information and only allow people to look at certain things and encourage this kind of sleepy state. I have this book here you gave me, Will. Great book, The Stellar Man. And I think a lot about how John Baines put it with the somnambulistic, I think was the word he used, something like somn. Maybe you can say it better than I do. But he's describing the sort of zombie state that most humans are living in. And I think
the hypnagogic trance.
Yeah, it kind of is closer to the psyche of what we might see in an animal, like where they do have emotions and reactions, sure. And maybe that's
Absolutely.
why some people say we are like humans, because most humans are kind of living in that state. But what I'm trying to excite in people and inspire and motivate is this potential we have, this amazing potential we have to do more. We have times in our very recent history in the Renaissance where we can see people were encouraging and doing just that through philosophy, through the arts, study of literature, study of words. I mean, memory. People used to have contests, and it was like a level of showing how amazing of a human you were, that how much things you could remember and recite. And we're kind of going the other way in modern times. Like, I don't need to remember anything. It's all on the internet anyway, which is bad. We need to condition ourselves. And then there's the physical aspect too, which is huge. But I know I'm a little bit all over the place, but this is kind of it's an exciting time, and there's a lot to think about how we can consolidate our energy. So
I want to touch on something though, because you're absolutely right. The majority of people are like animals. They're at that level of consciousness, right? This is what consciousness is doing. We're working our way up to the levels, right? So the animal can step into that human experience next go around of carnation on this field, this reality field, right? But the majority of people are not accessing that higher order thought function of consciousness. So they're being ruled by their emotions like an animal. They're in that mammalian brain that operates feelings and emotion. Or they're in the R complex, the brainstem, the reptilian mind, which is just fight or flight. We can observe this in society, right? Walk out your door, go to the store or something. You can see people scared as shit. They're not truly accessing that human dynamic. This is why the social engineers and the dark occultists called them the dead, because they're not truly human. They're not truly living. Looking at it at a consciousness, a conscious awareness level. And so you're right. They, looking at it that way, the majority of people are animals. They're at that level. And, like you said, with the Renaissance, that was a great time of creation, creating art and influencing, had a huge impact on people. And this is why we need to step into that creative essence, and create art.
And I think part of that is just kind of encouraging people and recognizing that that's possible. Because I think a lot of the problem we're seeing is that just people haven't been made aware of what's possible, what the potential is, and they're kind of complacent with expectations. I know I've experienced that in my own life. That's why I brought up earlier, how discovering the concept of natural law and letting that sink in was like, oh yeah, that's huge. That's very important. That's everything. but no one had really introduced me to that way of thinking my whole life until I discovered it um, on
Yeah,
the What on
that
Earth
was
Is
part of
This
your sole
podcast.
purpose, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're on these dharma paths that, you're here in this lifetime to learn a certain lesson and go through certain trials to clear karmic debt that you did, through generational, I mean not generational, through just working through the past lives and the levels of consciousness. This is what generational mind control is. The grandfather used to get emotionally or physically abused, so he did that to his son, and now, his son does it to his son. It keeps getting passed down and down, and we keep recurring all of this karmic debt. And so, that's why the suffering is just going to build up and build up and build up until natural law will, like a rubber band, it's going to snap back, and there will be that reckoning. But for someone like you, where you already had you had a different level of awareness, looking at archetypes, we can see the characteristics of consciousness, right? This is the like, you have the seeker archetype, where you're open, and that seeker is available. So as soon as you came across some information that totally just sparked your whole existence, and you went straight down the path. A lot of people aren't there yet and might not get there this lifetime, but you don't know who you're going to influence. And that's why, when people go, oh, I'm not getting, a few hundred likes, or I'm not getting, my views aren't up. You don't know who you're influencing. I mean, one would be good enough. If you changed one person's life, that would be good enough. But we're trying to do this, and to get as many people as possible to take that initiative, because they have to do the work. It's about knowing your self-worth, right? People don't understand how powerful they are. They are.
Yeah, I've often thought of, speaking of allegory, I think symbols and allegory are one of the best ways to begin to condition your mind to, think about these bigger thoughts and inner thoughts. But, if you drop a pebble in water and look at the ripple effect, it just keeps going and going. And someone clear on the other side of the lake's going to see that ripple. And, I had just today, somebody made a little comment on my YouTube channel, appreciating some of the work on my YouTube channel. I think her name was Anna. And just the way she wrote it, it came from the heart. It, like, honestly, I had tears in my eyes. I was like, wow, thank you. Someone been watching this thing I created, and then they took the time to write on there and say, hey, this is affecting me and giving me inspiration and motivation. And I'm like, wow, that's what I've been trying to do, and someone saying it's working. And it
That's what it's
made me
about, man.
feel
Yeah.
like, emotional, and in a good way. Before I put this book down, I had a cool thing bookmarked here. He says, John Baines, we refer to the internal nature of man, to his emotions, instincts, and passions, which are really his masters. The only possible freedom in this life is freedom from one's own passions, because as long as they dominate us, we will be mere puppets who obey the ebb and flow of the passionate states of the masses.
Exactly. Emotional mind control. As I think, so I feel, so I act, in that order, because it's all about the first principle of natural law, mentalism. The all is mind. It's all about your state of mind. Most people don't understand that concept, especially the masses. They are ruled by their emotions, just like how we talked about the level of consciousness as an animal, right? They're being ruled from how they feel. They listen to information, and they judge it on how they feel about it, without using logic and reason. So that, it's true words, man. It's dead on,
And
for
it's not
sure.
to say that there's anything wrong with having passions. I have a passion now for doing these podcasts and writing down these thoughts and sharing philosophy with people. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good passion, right? So when he's talking about being ruled by our passions, um, I think what it has to do with is what inspires your passion. Is it coming from within, like we talked about? So part of my passion is the idea that we're all part of this interconnected web of life, and if I'm aligned with that, and I'm putting my energy into source, creative, heart-based energy, then I'm contributing to all of life, right? And then all of life is gonna be like a open conduit where I'm getting energy from that situation, but I'm passionate about being part of it. So I guess what I'm getting at is there is a level of giving up the self, of sacrifice, of doing what's best for everyone. But on the other hand, that same phrase gets twisted to mean, like in terms of socialism or communism, what's best for all. Give up yourself, and that's not what I'm getting at all. But it's an important distinction. Maybe you can state it better than I am. Do you know what I'm getting at there, Will?
Yeah. Well, yeah, when you align yourself, it's all about self-mastery. This is what we're here to do, to to become moral beings and to achieve our soul desire, our soul path. Meaning you're here to learn a certain lesson, right? And there's going to be a caveat I'm going to say after this, and this is where the problem comes in. If you're here to be a great painter, right, you need to pursue that and do what your soul path is. And by doing that, right, becoming a master, a painter, you're giving back to the aggregate of consciousness in society, right? But you have to be in alignment with yourself, right? And not what he means about not letting passions rule over you. We can see this is a big problem nowadays. It's the same thing about with emotions controlling people. For instance, porn's a big problem, right? Completely just taking that life force creative energy out of a lot of men and women, right, for an egoic purpose. And people are slaves to that when they could be using that to better themselves and advancing their skill or something like that. So the social engineers always twist and turn stuff. They can't create anything new. They just manipulate truths and turn everything against people. But yeah, ultimately, when we align ourselves and we become better people, then we want to give our talents and our gifts to others, to better society. This is what freedom is all about. The freedom to achieve what you're here to do. And by doing that, you're giving it's expressing outwards externally, and you're giving to the community your talent, your gift. And but unfortunately, that's getting twisted and turned and used against people because people aren't in that mindset of self-mastery, bettering themselves, becoming a moral person and doing what's right. We are in a human condition of slavery where we are being violated on a daily basis. So a lot of people can't even take that time and energy to achieve what they're here to learn. This creates a feedback loop. So it's a tricky situation, and this is why it's so important to jump in this good fight. But also know your attributes, what you're good at, what you want to do, but utilize that in the fight for freedom.
One aspect of that I find a little difficult is many people start to think about the idea of fate. That life is deterministic, that if it's all figured out ahead of time, who cares anyway? I'm just like an actor in a play. But to me, it's very clear the idea of freedom is this amazing, what I call source divine energy, is that anything can happen, that we do have this ability to change reality. Every moment of our life, the things we do affect the physical world, and that's a way for us to see and physically feel how natural law works, basically, in terms of, you throw something through the air and then it hits something. Something happens. It breaks, or the thing you threw breaks. Something happens. Every little action you take, something happens.
Yeah.
And you're able to change things. How long did it take the universe to make the beach look the way it looks, or the snow to fall, and then I can just go out there and kick my foot through the sand and make a shape, or push the snow aside and make a snow angel. It took all the power of the universe to make the sun and the wind and all this stuff happen the way it is, and yet we have this incredible power to just show up and start changing things. And so that's more amazing than people realize. And then when we work together and do things, how did the pyramids get built? People don't even know the answers to. There's so many things on our planet that we haven't even solved the mysteries of things that exist in physical form here on this planet. And so there's a lot to be figured out and explored. We have more capabilities, and that's, to me, pretty exciting, that we do have a lot of room to grow. And so I think for those of us that are in some ways feel like we're getting cornered or pushed up against the wall since COVID, it's time to realize that this is actually the biggest opportunity we've ever had for growth and change, because even if there's only a few of us, other people that can see through this unreasonable situation and employ actual reason, we have the ability to connect with each other and form new things that never existed before. And we have this technology that we never had before in history, in our favor. So as difficult as it is, it's also an exciting time and a big opportunity to change things for the better. And I've been seeing some of that, so
Yeah,
trying to keep that upbeat.
we're co-creating, right? So let's get at it.
Yeah, but it's I'm reading a book right now, and when I say reading books, I always listen to books because that seems to be what works for me. But it's the book I'm listening to now is called Atomic Habits by the author's James Clear, and he talks a lot about implementing little changes in your life. And this is kind of what I've been recommending to folks that I talk to. If you want to make changes in your life, if you want to start being more part of the freedom movement, let's say, or you want to start writing, you want to start your own podcast, these things are not things that you do overnight. They happen in small little incremental steps. And so what I was talking about before, we do have the ability to change things in the world, but we don't have the ability to turn the sky orange overnight.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do big things all at once. We can do little things step by step, incremental changes. So
Yeah.
what are some of the things you do in your day-to-day life? Will, you have a really good discipline from my point of view, somebody that works on a lot of things, and you've been building them over the years, like you do plants, and I want to say farming, really small scale farming and gardening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Studying, learning, and presenting. There's a lot to all these disciplines. So where would you kind of recommend people kind of get started on some of these things?
Absolutely. Well, I can speak from me. This is stuff that, I mean, people need to discover on their own what they're into and what their passions are. I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. Like the good old saying. I just like knowing things. I like learning information and skills, but ultimately, my passion is definitely plants and gardening, and I love being in harmony with animals and the natural world. I fixate on the natural world and my goal it's a reason why it took me so long. It took me like 2.5 years to finally commit to doing videos, because I was very anti-technology. I wanted to be closer to the natural world and to the earth. So, that what's the balance there, right? It is discipline. I could do these podcasts and advance my technological know-how, but yet still do my gardening, my my ritual, my daily habits, that keep me balanced, because that's what it's all about. You want to be balanced. As soon as the imbalance happens, that's where you're going to have issues. And like you said, it's baby steps, just small day-to-day habits. And it helps for me to write them down. I'm very visual, so if I see the steps, like this is what I'm doing in the morning, got it, midday, sunset, night, bam, and focus on the fundamentals. Water, clean water. Water is the vehicle of consciousness. This is why the earth is 70% water. This is why the body is over 70% water. So get clean water, food, fresh food, not packaged, processed shit, and feet on the ground, connect with the earth, and get sun and fresh air. Stick to the basics, and then figure out what works for you. My whole motto is just like leveling up. Like, all right, if I want to be a better graphic designer, I find a style that I like, that I'm into, and I learn how to accomplish that style. And then I keep leveling it up, getting better and better. Like you said, baby steps, and time and attention, the real currency of reality.
And if you're stuck, ask for help. There's people out there that know and that will be happy that you ask them for help. They'll be like, "Oh, you look up to me and you're asking me for help? Thank you. Here, I'll give you some help. Here's what you need." So that's some good advice. And from there, I want to transition to spend our last few minutes here to discuss what's coming up, the Funnel Conference, our project that you and I are working on with our autonomous natural law group. The Funnel Conference is Funnel, FUNL, for freedom under natural law. And Will, you did an excellent job designing that logo, and we're going to bring that up for people to check out in just a little bit here at the end. But why don't you talk a little bit about what that logo is about and what funnel means to you, Will?
Yeah, for sure. So the funnel logo is a two-dimensional torus field, which the torus field is it's a phenomenal geometric shape. This is also the field of our aura, as above, so below. The aura, the field, magnetic field of the earth is a torus as well. Same with the aura, and the magnetic field of the human body is a torus. So it symbolizes, the law of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without, meaning that we're taking in cosmic universal knowledge into the self. So from the macro into the micro, and then we output that into reality, through creation. And this creates the ripple effect, the torus field. It keeps going. It's a phenomenal geometric shape that we can see all through nature. So yeah, I'm excited for this conference, man. It's going to be a good one. We got some great presenters like yourself.
It really makes me think too of like that impact point of where we discern truth, and that center point of, is it right or wrong? Is it stealing or not stealing? We take in all this information that seems overwhelming and we funnel it all down to one thing. Is it right or not? And when we're able to solve that, we're all able to export, the answer of what we should do. Nope, I shouldn't do it. That's a form of stealing. That's taken from people or not, But yeah, I'm excited about this conference. It really is pushing me to put together like my best presentation, and I'm putting a lot of energy into the presentation I'm doing. It's called The Ultimate Connection. And it's about, what I was talking about, the divine creative energy and source energy, and a little bit of the origins of humankind, and a little bit about what we can do as individuals. And I'm excited to see your presentation and Dom's on self-defense. And to me, this is really exciting because it's like we didn't have any authority telling us, I mean, I guess there was Mark Passio telling us we needed to get out and start working on the great work through the podcast, but he didn't say make a conference. We were inspired because they made the Seed Conference, because they made the other conferences. And so now
Inspiration,
we're
man. Inspiration.
we're putting that inspiration out there and inspiring each other to do this thing. And it's going to be cool. And then that's going to inspire something else. And hopefully the people that are listening now will be inspired to work on something their own and realize, like, hey, Chris and Will are just dudes who got excited about these ideas and put their energy into it, and they made it. Look, I'm a carpenter, no good at computers, no good at technology, and I just started learning these things one by one until I was able to do what I do, which still has issues. I'm still ironing out problems like we were tonight, but here I'm doing it, and I'm
It's all
pretty
about
excited.
evolution.
Pretty excited about it. Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's
So,
awesome,
yeah.
brother.
Yeah, really looking forward to the Funnel Conference, and encourage people to check out the website we put up. You can register there, freedomundernaturallaw.com. And
Free conference, free
free.
2-day conference.
What more can you ask for?
We got a nice, diverse categories of knowledge, but yet they all complement each other into this kind of like totality, like message. Freedom under natural law. Excellent.
Yeah. Just people who met, on Facebook, right? I think that's where we mostly all met.
Yeah.
And, just because we were all into natural law and we were all into Mark's work, and we've just been meeting and talking about these things for, geez, how long has it been, Will? 2 years? It's been longer than a year.
No, it's coming on 2 years, man.
Yeah, it's pretty
For
incredible.
sure.
So good
Yep.
inspirational story for you all to get out there and meet other people, work on your own community ideas, take your step-by-step choices and initiations and inspirations to move forward towards what we all need, is to see this renaissance take place. Renaissance of reason and a renaissance of true care for one another in the future. So,
Because Earth without art is just eh.
All right. Well,
Corny
thanks so
joke.
much, Will, for showing up tonight and hanging out with me on the End Evil podcast. And we'll do it
Yeah.
again soon.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me, Chris.
And thanks for helping me work on the technical aspects. Much appreciated.
Excellent, man.
All right. Can we show that little funnel
Yep.
advertisement at the end?
Yep, we'll play it right here, and then we'll wrap it up, huh?
All right. Sounds good, brother. We'll talk
Cool.
again soon. All right.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, folks, for listening. Appreciate it.